So, this is going to be more difficult than I thought. Fuck, and the story only gets crazier. I haven't even gotten to the worst parts yet. Good lord. Anyway, too far deep in now. But with that being said, I'm not sure if this is going to be done in one or two parts, depending on the flow of things, depending on, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. So, something that I've been withholding from the story up until this point is that when Peter and I got together, we realized that we did not want to be in an open relationship. I really don't want to have the open relationship talk right now. But in a nutshell, there many people, myself included previously, believe that open relationships are about having your cake and eating it too. In the gay community, they are particularly prevalent. I would say more so than the straight community, and it very much sounds like those gays can't even stay committed in a relationship, so they're all in a bunch of open relationships. And listen, I used to think that way too. And I really, again, don't want to have this conversation, but it's also something that you need to realize about gay culture, right? To put this in as, non explicit terms as possible. Not everyone wants to accept presents all the time, is what I've heard, is what I've been told. And, giving presents, accepting presents, right, in the gay community, you get my drift. And then there are people that they would prefer, to not have that kind of intercourse at all. There are all different types of gay relationships, and there's literally the best way I've heard it described is that there's not just one way to be gay. This is why this is so hard to talk about, is what I can share and what I do know is that I'm an affectionate person. I like to show affection. I like receiving affection. I wouldn't even say a lot. I mean, I don't know. I guess there's a limit to too much, but so the night that Peter and I met, and we there were fireworks and we made out and grabbed each other, and even though we didn't have sex, that never really happened ever again. Maybe when we were reunited, when we got back the first time, or the second time rather, and then we met up at the Painted Ladies, maybe a little bit that one time. But once we kind of settled into our relationship, Peter began to put up boundaries to how much affection he was willing to show me. And I remember that was one of the first ones, is he had all these they'll say, we can't kiss this much, or this too, just very quick short kisses, right? And then I realized that he didn't like to hold hands for longer than 2 or 3 minutes. And it was very much, again, a very strict cutoff. He'd very much throw my hand. I don't know if he did that intentionally, but that's how it felt to me. And again, I know how stupid I look. I feel dumb enough. But I'm just being honest. And the way that I kind of was justifying it in my head was one of two things that I kept going back and forth. Was one, he's going to grow out of it, he's going to mature. Or two, that there is some trauma that he will open up to me about when he's ready. It's all wishful thinking. By the way, I do know that Peter has trauma that he's not willing to talk about. And I didn't see it as my job or my place to try to get that out of him. I just wish that he had worked as hard on our relationship as he worked on keeping an emotional barrier between us. Again, I've only come to realize all of this afterwards. So we discussed and we decided to try to have an open relationship, because I was trying to do anything to make this work. And even though I just desperately wanted affection from one person, like I just wanted affection from my partner. I just wanted affection from my boyfriend. And he had like all these different excuses. Sometimes it was this thing, sometimes it was that thing. And like, again, I'm not going to get into all of that, but it was like at least 6 completely different and explicit excuses that he gave me for why he did things this way or why he didn't do things that way, for why. Again, that was kind of the 2 main things. I'm not going to get into the other more graphic details, but it was very much like, very, very like, with all due respect, like bitchy about kissing. It was sad. Like we never had any kind of kissing romance the way we did the night we met ever again. And then the hand holding, which I know they sound so stupid. I know at the expense of sounding petty, but the other reason why it's particularly hurtful is that I'll introduce Megan a little later on in the story, but one of his like girly friends that he's known, like they loved holding hands. Or I would say like he loved holding her hand. Like I saw that a couple times and it was like, I don't know, like stab me, dude. Like anyway. So I've realized, yeah, this is definitely going to be 2 parts, but there's two arguments and fights that I want to talk about before we go to Monterey, before we went on what, I don't know why I consider this like our honeymoon, because we never got married, but this was like our first big trip together. And we almost didn't go on this trip. Like we just barely, I feel, made it on this trip, barely by a string, because of all the tension that had built up in our relationship. And anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself, but in the next video, I'm going to talk in detail. I want the tea? Fine. In the next video, that's exactly what I'm going to talk. I'm going to talk about 2, maybe 3 arguments that we had leading up to our vacation, our trip away, to help you get a sense of, and y'all can make the decisions for yourselves. Obviously, there's 2 sides to every story, but leading up to our trip, and then the rest of the madness that happened in 2023. Mind you, Peter has not met my mother. Yeah, that's all I'll say for now.